Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Misandry Today, the weekly live show where we talk about issues relevant to men. And today we have with us Devil's Advocate, and we're going to be having a chat today. Devil's Advocate is a libertarian YouTuber as well as a psychologist and a social worker. Devil's Advocate, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody?
Hey guys, normally I greet everybody by hello, freaks and geeks, but that's what you're gonna hear in my videos a lot. I am Devil's Advocate. I'm gonna throw my real name out there, Dion McNeil. I've already doxed myself months ago, and I live in South Carolina. I am a social worker, but I no longer work in that capacity really at this point. Um, I actually just counsel veterans. And I work for an organization known as the DAV, or Disabled American Veterans. And so I mostly work with just primarily men, because 90% of the people that we get in there are men. And I'm a YouTuber, so I go by the moniker Devil's Advocate. I use a demon for an avatar, and you will notice that with me, I do a lot of content that people wouldn't normally think about. I target some ideologies. I target men's issues. I do sometimes some opponent stuff, but I try to limit that a lot because I want people to be informed about actual issues.
Right on,
I'm
man.
a
Welcome to the stream.
Yes,
And
sir.
just for people who don't know, for people that are new to the stream, you're going to see occasionally on the lower right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a small gray box with my icon in it, and occasionally you'll see like a +1 Bukkake choke slam that will flow through. What you want to do is if you're on Twitch desktop or you are on Twitch TV, you can click that box, and what'll end up happening is you'll get an option to redeem it. You can redeem it to ask questions. At the end of the stream, we'll do an open Q&A session, and people can ask questions either of me or the guest. Now, if you do have a question for the guest, just type in, Devil's Advocate, and then whatever your question is, or if the question is directed to me, type in DDJ, and then whatever your question is. Now, for those people who are on mobile devices or who are on Roku, you're not going to be able to have that option. So what you want to do is in the chat, once the Q&A session opens up, you just want to put question in caps and brackets, and then again, address it who it's to either myself or to Devil's Advocate, the guest, and then ask your question. Also, if you're asking these questions, especially in the chat, please try to make sure they're not multi-part questions, because I want to make sure I can get through everybody's questions. And then finally, if you have a lot of questions, try to hold some of the questions back to give room for other people. I know, like last stream, I had somebody who, he had great questions, but he asked like 30 questions of the attorney that I had on. So I want to make sure I give everybody an opportunity to be able to ask their questions and get their answers and go from there. So with that, we'll get back to the show. Devil's Advocate. So tell me, now you were working as a social worker. Were you working with the courts, with juvenile probation, or what were you working? I mean, like, what was the group you were working with?
I was working for the South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice, and so the capacity was I would take in some of our mental health cases. I can't mention
Of course.
their actual names, but the whole point of that is that there's a big problem within the prison systems, and especially with juvenile detention. The funny thing is, I actually ran across a lady while I was doing my nightly jog. I saw her in a DJJ uniform, and I asked her, "Do you actually work there?" And come to find out, like, one of my neighbors actually works there now. And so and I was having a conversation about some of the mental health, the mental health issues that we have in that whole entire system. And she was like, I was saying, like 80% of them might have some mental issues, and she's like, well, more like 90%. I was like, really? So it's a really big issue. A lot of them take some medications and stuff, and so it's kind of sad when you think about it. The vast majority of them are young men, and so these young men, they come in and they have issues, and some of them grow up in some pretty crappy environments. Now, that isn't to say that some of them didn't have some good upbringings. I had one kid. Both of his parents were lawyers, so it's not like he had like a bad environment. It's just sometimes you have issues.
Right. Right. Like
And
he may be a narcissist, or he may not have had the same value systems that other people would
right,
have. I
right,
get it.
right.
Right.
But the
Now,
vast majority of them, they came in with some pretty harsh issues.
when you say harsh issues, I mean, I've actually worked with some juvenile justice stuff, and in family law, I did a lot of dependency work and a lot of parental termination and those types of things. And also, when you're dealing with a family long term, like after a divorce, and you're dealing like parenting plan modifications and things, you kind of follow the lives of some of these kids a little bit, and you realize that it seems to me anyway, at least from my experience and the stuff that I've read, that children from broken homes are the ones who are more often suffering from these types of issues, or make the kinds of mistakes that would get them in the juvenile justice system. What's your feedback on that?
I would say that you are not only correct. I would have taken it a step further, and this is kind of why I understand why movements like MGTOW exist. You have, and it is not about the women; it's about the system. All right. When you have so many single mothers, you have so many bad environments. Did you know that in a single parent household, they are far more likely to be abused, far more likely. And so when you have child abuse, they've actually done studies, and there's actually studies all over the place that actually shows that when you're in a single parent household, you are not only more likely to be abused, but when you get that abuse, it makes you more likely to commit crimes, because it's just like it's kind of funny that I've actually met people who don't understand that, and so I have to kind of explain it to them, not in like an asshole way, but just kind of like a nice way, saying, if you abuse a dog, the dog will become aggressive. So what do you think happens to like a child? they're
Right.
they're going to be aggressive, and so this especially happens with young men because we have testosterone. So when you have someone who has testosterone, you're going to have people who may get abused, and in turn they become more aggressive because they figure that aggression is what is keeping me alive, and it's basically a defensive response. Like I had one kid, and I'm not going to mention his name. I had one kid. I'll mention his nickname, Ratchet, and Ratchet could play basketball. He was a smart kid and everything.
Well, I've actually known plenty of ratchet women. Just saying. But go on.
I was going to say though, Ratchet. He was a great basketball player. I thought that he could actually go to college, but I asked him, why did he fight so much? Why would he always like fight staff? Like, why would he always, do the wrong things and everything? So I actually looked into his background. This kid was forced to sell drugs out of the back of a fucking van. I mean, that if you had to grow up like that, I mean, you're around gang members and drug dealers. I mean, I understand why you are aggressive because you've been trained to do that. That's not your fault.
Well, yeah. I mean, I grew up in a gang environment, and they jump you in, and they don't give you
Yeah,
the option to say no. No is not an option, and so you have to do certain things to survive. I totally get it. And just so that so our audience has a better idea of kind of the context in which you're speaking. I mean, you've got like a master's degree, right? I mean, the state you're in, I
right.
think, didn't you say something that you were like a psychologist?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so you're not a layman. I mean, you are a professional. You're trained to work in this field. This is something that you do. You're a postgraduate professional, and you're not just talking off the cuff, obviously. From I mean, because obviously, you see social workers out there that have an art degree, and they become social workers because they can't find another job doing anything else. So they kind of fall back on it because it's a paycheck. And I think that in this case, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because this is your degree, this is your focus, this is your specialty, this is what you do in your professional life. And so you have that background. And I want to make sure that people understand that, because he's not just like, this isn't like just some, random guy or some bitter guy who's upset at the system. This is the voice of a professional who worked on the front lines trying to help these children through a rough period of time. And he is seeing this firsthand. And so I think that devil's
right.
advocate's perspective on this is absolutely crucial. And the more that we have these conversations with people like Devil's Advocate and MGTOW Esquire and some of these other people, the wider perspective people are going to have. And they're going to understand, well, yeah, we're going MGTOW because we don't want our children to go through this. We don't want to be in a
Right.
situation where we create a broken home because of feminism's war on men, marriage, and the family values. And so Um, and to bring it back to you, Da. Um, so as you were working with this stuff, when you worked with these troubled children on a percentage scale, and again, I'm asking you kind of spitball here. What would you say? What was the percentage of children in juvenile justice that you worked with that were raised in either single parent households or broken homes?
I would say anywhere. I mean, it depends on like the intake, but when you look through their actual files, I'll say like 90% of them.
Okay. So I mean
Ninety
that's
percent of them.
huge. That is absolutely
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
And
It's a big issue, man. And the thing is that some people try to make it like a racial issue. And it's like, dude, it's not a racial issue. Like I've got Asian kids in there, I've got white kids in there, I've got Hispanic kids in there. Dude, it's just single parent homes. It's like it's ridiculous.
right. And I think that's the thing that needs to be underscored. It's absolutely single parent homes. And again, hashtag shill alert. You see my book in the upper right hand side of the screen. I go into this in chapter 3. I talk about how feminism's war on marriage destroyed the family. And you see children raised in broken homes. They have horrible outcomes. And obviously, Da, you've worked in this field, so I'm going to ask you for your feedback on this as well. I've heard multiple times that uh, the biggest determining factor of whether or not a child will grow up to be a criminal is whether or not they were victimized as a child. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, that is 100% true in my opinion. Now, um, the reason being, there's numerous reasons as to why I think that is, but I've read all sorts of studies, and I've actually seen some things. I've actually just theorized about it. Once again, um, I hate to compare humans, or especially children, to dogs, but it is so analogous. So when you have a dog, right, and you are trying to train that dog to do tricks, well, you want that dog to associate good feelings and that treat with the actual trick, so that they will do it willingly without you having to give them a whole lot of praise or another treat.
So you're saying
So
like the peanut butter trick that single women sometimes do with their dog.
something like that, something like that.
Okay.
Basically, what happens is whenever someone gets associated with a certain feeling, with a certain action, and they couple that together, that person will eventually never need that original scenario to enact that behavior. So with that said, like for example, I met a white kid who actually ended up in DJJ because he decided to go and stab a black kid because he's actually racist. And so and it's freaking
Hold on.
South Carolina,
Before you jump forward, can you say what DJJ is for those that don't know?
Department of Juvenile Justice.
Okay, go on.
And so this kid ended up in DJJ, and so he actually explained to me his whole thought pattern, which is that was awkward. I am black as shit, and he's actually white, so it's kind of awkward. But he was explaining to me. He said, I was actually jumped when I was younger, and so whenever I was around black people, I was actually scared, and I didn't excuse what he did, but I understood how he reached that conclusion. I had some empathy, because
Yeah, it
I
was a
mean
logical
he
conclusion. If he's been
right.
victimized by that group of people, he negatively associates with them.
Right, right.
My
So
my
go
my
ahead.
first ex-wife, her father was in the Navy, and he was stationed over in Japan, and he got off work and he was going out to go out for the evening, and on his way out, he was beaten by 3 Japanese citizens, and I mean beaten badly to the point where they did so much damage they gave him grand mal epilepsy, and he carried it with him for the rest of his life. And so he automatically had some negative feelings towards Asians as a direct result of that. I mean, that was a traumatic experience, and he almost died. So I mean, while I don't necessarily agree with the conclusion, I completely understand how he got there.
Yeah, yeah. I can definitely see that. It just when I think about it, sometimes it's kind of sad because it's when I tell people, especially parents, especially single parents, I tell them that when you expose your child to certain environments, you show them certain behavior, you show them around shitty men, you show them around club behavior. When you expose them to that kind of stuff, I'm not saying that that those behaviors shouldn't be allowed, that's fine. If that's how you want to live your life, that's fine. When you expose children to that, you are training them to be criminals. I hate to say it, but that's about as frank as I can actually put it.
Well,
You're training
sure. I
them
mean,
to
if
be.
you if you run if you're a single mom and you run a bunch of guys through your home, that child is going to get a very skewed view of relationships. And if he sees that woman be promiscuous around all these men, he's going to have a negative view of women and a negative view of what relationships look like. I have a good friend of mine who, I mean, we've been friends for, over a decade. And he told me, he's like, I can't have relationships because he was raised by a single mom who was promiscuous and he saw all that. And then he saw his father go out and cat around as well. And he was like, and he's a great guy, he's a loyal friend, but he can't be loyal to a woman because he's like, he's fire and forget because he understands that this is something that's in his psyche and he understands it's like a mental health issue for him, like a blocking point. But he just accepted it. He's like, I can't change. So I get that.
The other thing I find really really interesting that I don't never really hear come up too often when it comes to the single parenthood. It's this defensiveness. Like for example, I went down to my in-laws' place. It was about 6 months ago, and so I was having a conversation about single parenthood. And and some people, they get so offended when you talk about it and say, "Hey, it's not a great idea." And it's like, you know, it's some people think that whenever you criticize single parenthood, or whenever I do it, that we are personally attacking them. That's not the case. We are thinking about the best welfare of those children. I think that is a large part of the problem, in that some people take it personally, like you're talking about them personally. And it's like, no, we are talking about the overall thing. Some people will say, well, I was raised in a single parent home, and I was just fine. It's like, yeah, you being one person does not equal out to the totality of humanity. So when we look at any racial group, any group, anywhere, any country, single parent households are a disaster. That is a fact.
Oh, I would agree with that completely. In fact, I was talking on the Tommy Sotomayor show a couple weeks ago. We were talking about single parent households, and if you look at, like, for instance, in the United States, you look at the American ghettos, like whether they be Latino ghettos or black ghettos or even white ghettos where people are financially strapped. In those communities, the majority of those households in those communities are single parent households. So absolutely, I mean, you're going to see this across the board. And it's really sad because it perpetuates a multi-generational problem. And I think it's kind of funny that you bring up the whole, or I should say, interesting that you bring up the whole single parent thing, because it's my view that as a parent, as a father, I've got 3 grown children now, and I've got another one on the way, and I've got 2 grandchildren. I think the thing that strikes me the most is that as a father, I understand that my job's not done when my kids are 18, you know, and it's that multi-generational mentorship. And so, like when my daughter had my 2 grandchildren, she asked for advice, and they want to know because they're new parents. They want to be able to turn to people. So in addition to educating themselves with books and looking and researching online and talking to all the little parent groups that they're a part of and things like that, they want to be able to ask their parents, the grandparents, and aunts and uncles and things like that, how did you raise us? What was it, the stuff that you did, or how did you handle this situation? And I think that when it comes to families, I'm not just talking about mom and dad and children, that whole nuclear family thing. Absolutely, that's important. But what I'm also referring to as well is the multi-generational family that provides the extra reinforcement that mom and dad need, because mom and dad can't do it by themselves all the time. So I get exactly where you're coming from.
Um, I'm very. There's something else I want to approach you about. I've been asking this question, and it's something that I know the chat's gonna be like, what are you asking? It's about MGTOW. So I'm married. How does MGTOW feel about married men? Let's just put this shit to bed for once and for all.
Oh, you're a power bottom cuck. Absolutely. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, Oh, really? Damn.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, now you know. No,
Damn.
no. I mean, so here's the thing: it's not the marriage that's the issue. You talk to any MGTOW, you talk to Turd Flinging Monkey, you talk to anybody who's thought about this. You talk to Human, you talk to Sunrise Hoodie, you talk to Chris Cantu, you talk to anybody who's done any kind of time thinking about this. The marriage isn't the issue when it comes to the relationship between the man and the woman until it becomes abusive or until it becomes a point where it no longer benefits the man. And so the relation and honestly, this is where relationships should die. If the man is not getting benefit from the relationship, if they're not getting benefit from the marriage, why the fuck are they married? You know, two people who live together who don't have sex, those they're called roommates. They're not called husband and wife, right? So if your wife is treating you as though she is your roommate and she is not your wife, well, there's a problem. And the other side of that is that, like, you know, obviously TFM has never been married, Human has never been married, neither one of them have ever had children. They kind of understood the cost benefit analysis before they ever had to take that leap. Me, I had to do it what TFM calls the hard way. I had to get married once, and then I had to fuck up and make the mistake and get married again in order to understand what the damage was, because it's divorce rape is huge. I mean, men will get wrecked in family court. The family courts are absolutely saturated with feminists, and I'm sure that the industry that you worked in, as far as like juvenile justice, again, saturated with social justice warriors, saturated with all this gynocentric ideology, and it's not a good deal for men. It destroys men, and it does so unfairly, and it targets them. And so as MGTOW, you know what? Look, if your marriage works for you, that's great. If you can keep your marriage and your relationship alive, and it's a dual marriage, that's great. But if you have to go sleep on the couch while your wife fucks Chad and Tyrone in your bed, and you're still paying the freight on that, then we're gonna have to have a conversation. You know, because as a husband, you should never have to wait in line for your wife, right? So
Right.
the idea is, and again, this also goes for abusive relationships. If the relationship is abusive and it's something more than a miscommunication that escalated out of control, or, you know, maybe you had a bad rum night or something that's not normally happening, then you have to really consider that, and you have to think about that. So we have a lot of people, especially in the monkey business Discord, we have a lot of people out there who they are married, or they are not, they don't identify as MGTOW, but they are allies. And I know that sounds like that SJW bullshit thing, but they're supporters. They're MGTOW supporters. They get it. They also understand too that if their relationship ever died, and they love the woman that they're with, they're committed to this woman and they care about this woman, but they understand that if their marriage ever died, they would immediately go MGTOW, because MGTOW eschew cohabitation,
That's where I'm
commitment,
at.
and marriage. You know, and so yeah, so people understand that, and the reality is that most marriages don't survive beyond 10 years, and many marriages, the husband and the wife are separated after 5. You know, and these aren't, and here's the thing: people think MGTOW hate women. We don't. We
No.
don't. And I'll tell you what: if gynocentrism was eradicated, and people actually looked at common sense approaches like what TFM talks about, where he's, you know, talking about reestablishing patriarchy and linking rights with responsibilities, and saying, "Oh, this is a privilege. You don't have any responsibility. You don't get that right. Go play hide and go fuck yourself. You don't get that right." If people took a common sense approach like that, I might consider marriage again, assuming that, you know, obviously somebody wanted to be with me, at least on a permanent basis. But there are many MGTOW out there who would. But we also understand that as much as we would love to have that kind of relationship, we've done a cost benefit analysis, and it makes more sense at the end of the day to have that MGTOW mindset rather than to have that patriarchal mindset, or that tradcon mindset, or that familial mindset. So yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you as married, absolutely. And I know you support MGTOW, and I know when we first started talking, you were very skeptical of my views, but you were open to them, and I thought that was interesting. And then it's kind
Yeah.
of interesting to see how you've evolved in your views. Can you go into that a little bit?
You know what? You know what's funny? You saw the clip, right? That was a
I
little
did.
bit after me and you talked. You, turd flinging monkey, and feeding the cat. The you know, cat was actually talking. So after that, you know, I was like, you know, maybe I was wrong about this whole thing. Maybe I need to sit back and shut the fuck up and listen to Turtle Monkey for a second here, because this is some BS. Like, in case you want to know what the clip is, in case your eyes wants to know. So,
Yeah,
I had a
why don't you do this? Talk about kind of your thoughts before coming on the Turd Flinging Monkey show. Talk
right.
about kind of what your experience was there. Then go into the clip and the situation that led to the clip, and then talk about what your conclusion was after.
Right. So I was coming into the Turd Flinging Monkey show, and originally, I was a person that was very skeptical of MGTOW. And the reason being is because of how some of the MGTOWs behave. You got a hold of me, and you said, "Look, some of these guys, they're crazy. We don't like them. We completely disavow them, and also there might be some controlled opposition that's actually going on there, and so I've been big on that because I've been covering the Fabians. I've been covering, you know, all this stuff. So I'm, that had some weight with me. So when I
Right,
actually talked to,
and just so we're on the same page, just because I disagree with some of these MGTOW, look, for those MGTOW out there that I do disagree, I don't have a problem if you're sucking dicks at truck stops. That's you. Go your own way. So anyway, go on.
um, the thing is that after I talked to TFM, and I thought the conversation was actually good. After I talked to him, and after I talked to you, I found myself saying, these guys aren't so bad, and so I started actually, because I was already watching TFM's content. And I was always telling you, I told you a million times, and at first you kept saying no. I said, dude, start your own channel. I kept telling you that over and over and over again. And so you
Oh
finally,
yeah,
you
I
finally,
resisted. I definitely resisted.
I was like, look, you have the voice for it. You have the knowledge. You have the actual know-how. Go ahead and do it. So, but anyways, after I talked to you guys, I said, you know what, I was wrong about them. So I started talking to you a lot more. And I had a situation happen at my house. There was some disagreements between me and my wife, and things happened. I'll put it to you like that. And as a result of that, I went to the cops and I was asking them questions. And so they told me, and I actually got this on video, and I'll be giving you that video. Um, I got on video. Cops told me, you're lucky that you're married, because if you weren't, and we came over here for any kind of disturbance, we would allow her to take the kid. She would get automatic custody, and you would have to leave your home. And I'm like, but I'm paying a mortgage. Why would I have to leave if I've done nothing illegal? And that's what happened. It was a big eye opening experience. I've always talked about how the legal system screws men. I get that, but to see it happen right in front of your eyes and get camera footage of it, that was a whole different kind of beast. I'm not gonna lie to you. I went back into my room and I cried, because it was very emotional. It was like I could have lost my kid if I had I not married her. I would have lost my kid. And imagining life without my child, I wouldn't have a purpose for going on. That was very eye opening, and it was devastating. I mean, even though nothing happened, to think that could have happened, that was devastating. You know.
Well, and let me kind of underscore that a little bit. I've worked with a lot of men who've had that loss where their wife has kept their children from them. You look at Tyrese, for example. The man broke down in tears. This is a normal response. Everybody's like, oh, this bitch is crying, blah, blah, blah. No, that is a normal response for a man who loves his children, who cannot be with his children. He feels that sense of loss the same as the death of a loved one. And it's that grief cycle, and it's depressing. And you're absolutely correct, because I'll tell you, most men who discover MGTOW the hard way, like, what you went through, what I went through, what many men in a relationship that actually breaks down goes through, they experience that loss, and they break down. They break down, and I'll tell you, I don't know of one man who has gone through a divorce, who has gotten divorce rate by the family court like I have, who is not broken down in tears, myself included. So it happens, and it is definitely a reality. And the thing is like, I always say to people, I say, look, if you and I are having a conversation and I share with you something that is emotionally powerful to me, or emotionally close to my heart, or something I really care about, from the time it leaves my lips till the time it hits your ears, 80% of the give a shit level is gone. So you, as the listener, you can only really care about what I've gone through just by hearing it. If you've not experienced it, your give a shit level's 20% at most. And you're like, well, that's a horrible tragedy, but I'm detached from it. I'm going to move on with my day. And then if you really care and you're friends, maybe that might go up a little bit. But then, like you, DA, where you have to walk that walk for a minute and you're like walking that line and you're like, shit, if I was on the other side of this line, I'd be getting divorce raped right now. I would lose
Yeah.
custody of my kids. I'd lose my house. I'd still have to pay the mortgage. She'd still be living there and she'd be fucking Chad and Tyrone, but I'd have to pay the freight. Basically, she would have the court system cuck you. And that realization, it is a red pill moment unlike any other. And like I said, most men in that time period, they will break down. So yeah, absolutely. So once that happened, once you did the breakdown, what was your thought process after?
Afterwards, it was I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know. I I argued with like the actual officers, like off camera, but I really didn't know what I would do should that happen. I mean, there's no that's the part that I can sympathize with you guys on because one, when it comes to the judicial system, when it actually comes down to the laws, you have a point, and I can't argue that. It's just there is no recourse. There's nothing that you can do. You're just fucked, and you'll be fucked for 18 years. And that was what was going through my mind. You know, it's just like imagine that I have to go to court just to prove that I deserve equal custody to a child that is my child. You know,
Right.
why
Well,
should I have
yeah.
to? Why should I have to do that? That just seems like it's not fair.
Well, it's a form of parental alienation because what ends up
Right.
happening is if she takes the kid from you and you end up getting kicked out of your home, whether it's for a legitimate reason or not, there's that separation anxiety that's there. You know, you're used to seeing your kid off to school. You're used to having your kid come home and having dinner with you. You're used to having your kid come and ask you for help with stuff or to go play outside or all these normal activities of daily living. And then when you have that ripped from you and you have to go to court to deal with that, I mean that right there is emotionally traumatizing for a man because like you said, your whole life focus, the whole reason that you live was to be a father and to have your family. And that's a very traditional point of view for men. And and it goes back to pre-feminism. So, but there's still a lot of men out there who have that mindset. And there's nothing wrong with that mindset. It's just that the playing field has changed. The society has changed, the community has changed, and it is absolutely detrimental for men. And I'll tell you, because you've worked in that juvenile justice system, you understand that if something happened and your relationship broke down and you lost custody, your kids are more likely to grow up to be criminals, and they're more likely to grow up in have horrible lives, which will in turn destroy the lives of your grandchildren as well. So you get it intimately, and I could see where that red pill moment for you was absolutely brutal. And I think that the reality that a lot of people don't understand is that in this particular society, when the relationship breaks down, or if you're a single man who doesn't have children, there is no real valid cost benefit analysis to commit, cohabitate, or marry a woman in this particular environment. Because when the relationship breaks down, and it most likely will, you're fucked. No dinner, no movie, they're going in dry. And you better make sure your sphincter's relaxed because they're going to be there for a while.
Well, the other thing that I found really interesting about that whole situation is how whenever I would post about it, I didn't want to like give out too many details, but I would post about it on social media, and the one thing that I noticed, man, is that there is no kind of sympathy. Like I had people rationalizing it, like saying, well, typically, young children, they want to be with the mother and everything else, and it's like that's besides the point. Why do you need a law to basically fuck them in? You know, why do you need a law? Why do you need that law there? That just seems like it just seems so slimy, and it just seems it just reeks of gynocentrism. It really does. And I remember a couple of years ago, not I would say about 5, 6 years ago, whenever someone brought up, gynocentrism, and they kept going on and on and on about it, I would say, "Oh God, you're another one of those crazy guys." Now, when someone brings it up, I'm like, he might be right. I automatically start off from the position now of taking them of taking those claims seriously, and me going to look into them versus now, versus back then, where I would just pretty much discredit them, because I, even now, to a certain extent, I look at women, and I assume that there is some degree of innocence there, and I'm slowly getting out of that, because I have a hard time believing that, for example, when you look at the single custodial rate of parenthood, you know, the people who are the sole custodial guardians, that's like what, 80% women. So you try to
Right.
convince me that 20% of men didn't actually want their kids? Is that what you're trying to tell me? No, that's not the case. And so if you have women out there who know that's the scenario that we all find ourselves in, you know, I have a hard time believing that they are unaware of those actual stats. I think some women actually know it. They
Well,
actually know it.
I think the other side of it too is, especially with out of wedlock parents, like paternity actions and things. Many of the fathers that I've spoken to who are married, they were either trapped with a kid and that's why they got married, like a shotgun marriage, or they actually want to be a part of their child's life. They want to be a father. They want to participate. They want to participate on the daily. They understand their relationship with their ex is gone, and they understand that she's moved on and they're moving on, and they don't care about that. They just want to be in their child's life daily. And 4 days a month, which is about the average of what an average visitation schedule is for a man, is not enough to have a meaningful impact on your child's life. All it does is piss the kid off, because every time the kid sees you, the kid knows what he can't have, and so they grow up and resent you. And then if your ex is talking shit about you on top of that, you're done. You have no chance. There's no way to avoid that parental alienation doctrination. When it comes to paternity actions, though, I think that the thing that people are missing is that sperm jacking is a fucking thing. And again, a little
Yeah, it
hashtag
is.
shill alert. I talk about this in chapter 7. A lot of women will lie about being on birth control. I spoke to a woman this morning who said that, if she accidentally got pregnant, she'd have the child, because she's getting to a point in her life where she's single. She doesn't have a steady boyfriend or a husband, and she wants a family. The baby rabies is real. She understands. She's getting to a point where she understands that eventually, she's going to run out of eggs. She's going to hit the wall. She wants to be
Yeah.
able to have a legacy, and that this is a biological urge. And so these women will sperm jack. They will lie about being on birth control. They will say all these types of things because they understand they want a family. And these men have no rights. If a woman gets pregnant, she can, well, first and foremost, even before then, she can choose to take a variety of different types of birth control. If she gets pregnant, she can take the day after pill. She can get an abortion. She can birth the child, and at the end of the birth, she can abandon the child at a fire station or a hospital or a police department or a church. Abandon, literally abandon, and be okay. Just drive the fuck off. She can adopt the child out, or she can choose to keep the child. A man has none of those choices. And, TFM made a really good point a few months ago when we talked about abortion, and we talked about when does life start and when does it stop. For legal purposes, life stops when the heartbeat does. So when a human heart stops, that person's considered legally dead for purposes of the eyes of the law. Well, why is it that life doesn't start when the heartbeat starts?
Very
She's
good point.
growing a child in her body. And even though that child is part of her system, she could abort that child and it doesn't have any negative impact on her body. You take away her lung, she's kind of fucked. You take away her kidney, she's kind of fucked. You take away her heart, she's dead. But you take away the child, that child is a separate entity growing inside her. So why is it that before the birth actually happens, or even the process up to leading to the birth, Why is it that that man has no legal rights? I mean, that right there. That's the very definition of a gynocentric system. So when we
Yeah.
talk about this and we fast forward, now the child's born, mom's had baby rabies, and she wants to keep this child. Now she has control over that man through child support, through the court systems, and he never even wanted to be a father. He was just trying to get his dick wet. She told him she was on the pill. She told him she had an IUD, and she straight out lied to him. Or, he used a condom, and the condom didn't break. And she dug it out, and she put it up inside her. Or she froze his sperm. I mean, there are so many different ways, and I go into some of them in my book. But you can go online and you can look up sperm jacking and see it, and it happens all the time. And here's the thing: when these women commit this kind of fraud, the man has no legal rights. There have been federal lawsuits about this sort of thing where, these men have been forced into childbearing and they've been forced into parenthood and they have no rights, have no recourse. The courts don't give a shit. And that's even true if the man is a rape victim. If he is a child victim of rape, he will grow up, and when he turns 18, they will impute back child support to him from the time that the mom had the child to now. And the rapist will still have custody of the kid. So when people think about that, I mean, you think about the implications of that. MGTOW makes sense, and it makes absolute logical sense, and it makes sense from a self-preservation perspective. Because at the end of the day, every one of these women is a slut if you catch her on the right day. And there's nothing, and hypergamy is biological, so we can't change that. But with the laws that allow unrestrained hypergamy in a woman and allow her to act in ways that they would never tolerate for a man, there's no consistency. It's a one-sided system. And in the end, when men try to speak out against it, they end up becoming demonized because of it. So when you were talking about that, yeah, I totally get it. And you're right, that when that cop was telling you that, he was absolutely correct. And here's what's even worse. If you were the domestic violence victim, let's say she pulled a knife on you and stabbed you, they'd still arrest you. Did I lose you? Too funny. Give me a second here. All right, are you back with me? I think I lost DA here for a second. All right, you back with me?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened to me. I got dropped out there.
Yeah, I monologued you to death. Congratulations.
All right, all right. Are we still live?
Yeah, we're absolutely still live. Fuck them.
Cool, awesome. Awesome. I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure like Discord has like some massive error or something.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You weren't dropped for that long. But yeah, so I mean, my point is though, is that like you said, when you got arrested, if you would have been the victim and she would have stabbed you with a knife, you still would have got arrested.
That's how it works. It's only mutual combat when she does the most damage.
Right. All right. So let me ask you this. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit. Now you say you're now working with veterans. Talk about what you're doing with veterans.
So what I do now is for the most part, I take in veterans who are having some troubles adjusting to real life, and so it's very nice to talk to another veteran who's been there, who's done that, who understands some of their struggles, some of their struggles. And so I actually counsel them. I actually talk to them. I'll follow them. I'll get their phone number. I'll get their email. Some of them actually want me to come by and visit. And so I will do that. And
as long as you're not hooking up with them, I suppose it's okay.
Yeah, wife would kill me. But I got the 100% from the VA, so I don't have to work. But I decided to do this, and that's what takes up most of my time. So I don't put out a whole lot of YouTube videos. I put out maybe like once a week.
Well,
just once a week tops.
For those people who didn't see the video that I mirrored, so I mirrored, for those who don't know, I mirrored one of DA's videos on my channel about veterans. DA, why don't you kind of give a brief synopsis of that video and tell me why you made it?
I wanted to make a video, and I was making the video with the feminist in mind. because I wanted a feminist to understand why MGTOW and why the MRAs why they say things that they actually do. Personally, I'm not big into the MRAs, to be honest, but I mentioned them because at the time, most of the feminist fire that was being directed was at MRAs. So I mean, I figured I want to explain to them the reasons why some of these issues are affecting men, and so I wanted to name the video "Veterans Issues" or "Men's Issues," and I kind of explained it. I went through an exhaustive process of actually showing people, the reason why we have so many male veterans who are going through shit.
So
Like
if I understand correctly, what you're trying to say then is that you were trying to red pill people about these issues who might be blue
right.
pill and not understand what the situation was.
Right. Like I gave a prime example. And it wasn't just some of the issues. I was actually explaining the way men could look at this whole thing and see a giant shit show. Like I'll give you a prime example. In 2014, the VA waiting list scandal went down, and for some reason, it was in the news, but people forgot about it. You want to know why people forgot about it? Because they were also more concerned in 2014. They were more concerned about banning Bossy. Do you understand the message that sends to every male veteran? You care more about banning Bossy or women than not letting male veterans die on waiting lists. Not a single female veteran died on waiting lists. If we had a bunch of women dying on waiting lists, that problem would have been fixed overnight.
Now, when you
But
say
it
ban
wasn't.
bossy, for those that don't remember that, go ahead and explain what that was.
And Bossy. So it was this large campaign. It was this large campaign. They had Oprah, they had Condoleezza Rice. They had so many people who were women who were getting in these commercials saying, let's ban bossy. Let's not call girls bossy, but but little girls especially don't call them bossy because that would discourage them from leadership positions. They had Beyonce in it. It was this huge campaign. It had millions of dollars of freaking funding, and some of it came from the government itself. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so while you're letting men die on waiting lists, you're funding this nonsense. It's just,
Well,
it's
and
just
I'll put money on it that they probably got as much money on that campaign as the VA gets to support men. And I'll be honest with you, I think we should ban bossy. I get it. I think we should just call them narcissistic cunts. I think we should be clear. We got to accurately describe people, right? I think that's important. Don't you?
I think that being honest is a very important thing. So yeah, I was very very pissed off while making that video, because it was just annoying me how some of these issues never came up. Like for example, people talk about drug abuse, and I'm explaining to men, especially MGTOW, hey guys, there is a huge problem with opioid abuse among men. We got to start talking about it because I mean it is really bad. If if you were to look at at some of the worst overdoses that we've ever seen, it happened to veterans, and recently, and even in like the recent past, we've had vets go to VA clinics and actually overdose because they were overprescribed drugs. You know,
Right.
and that's been happening a lot. It's just really really odd that no one talks about this enough. And I think a large part of it is that it's affecting men, and no one seems to give a shit.
It's kind of funny that you bring this up right now. So last night we were on the Turd Flinging Monkey show, and one of the guests he was the son of a man who he watched get divorce raped by his stepmom. And it turned out that the stepmom and he had been doing drugs. The guy was an alcoholic. He had been doing meth. It looked like he might have been dealing. And this guy was going. I mean, basically, he destroyed his own life and he destroyed his relationship with his children as a result. And it's interesting that you bring that up. So I guess my question for you is that when it comes to those people who are struggling with those types of issues, what is your advice from the front lines? In other words, how do you approach people or what are the resources that you have or that you think are important to basically give people a choice? I mean, obviously, I think that a drug addiction is real, and it's something that it's an internal demon that these people have to fight because they're fighting that addiction. But when they make the conscious choice to say, I don't want to be a drug using piece of shit anymore, what do you tell them? What are the resources that you provide them in a very broad sense? Obviously, the resources are going to differ state for state, but in jurisdictions and such. But what do you say to them? What kind of things do you tell them to do?
Depending on who they are, if they are a veteran, I will give them the veterans crisis line, and once they kind of give their name and where they are and everything else, the local Department of Veterans Affairs will actually contact them, and they'll actually get up with them, and they'll actually get them in some classes to help them with that. I would suggest for like the person who isn't a veteran, in every state there is 12 there are 12 steps, types of programs, and I
You mean
understand.
like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics
Right,
Anonymous?
right,
And,
right.
right.
There are
Okay.
plenty of those, especially if you're like an alcoholic, So I would say get involved in those programs. But one thing that I do say that some people get upset with, especially like my atheist friends, is that you know I found that through religion, sometimes people can actually find the strength to not use again. Um, there are various programs, and if you want like a complete list after the actual stream, I will give you that list, and you can post it to your Twitter. And I actually want to work on that type of project because I want people to know where to go to get help. If you are a child, there are federal programs that are there for you. I can't remember the one off the top of my head now, but I'll give you that link and their actual phone number.
Right.
But there's plenty of help out there, man. There are a lot of addiction programs out there. The one thing that I would tell you to avoid is like you'll watch the freaking TV or you go on the internet, you see like these people who are advertising, these really expensive programs when they're not doing anything different than anybody else. So I'll be very, 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 very careful when doing that. If you are, let's say, for example, even if you're not a veteran, if you call the Veterans Crisis Line, they will get you to a civilian section of that, and that's what they're the the whole question isn't where can someone find the help because anybody can find that. The problem
Okay,
is
so so so
getting
after
what?
after the stream, it sounds like you'll be able to provide me with that
Oh
information.
yeah, oh
So
yeah.
let me
I'll
ask
give
you
you
this:
those.
when it comes to loved ones, like in this case, this young man, I think he was 16 years old, and he loved his father, but he understood that when he's under the grips of the drug addiction, he was actually afraid for his life. He was terrified of being around his dad. So with a child like that, or even a wife or a husband, or aunt, uncle, that kind of thing, what kind of advice would you give somebody like that who's dealing with somebody they care about who is addicted to drugs?
What should they do? Like, what kind of resources would they should they
Yeah, or just in
call?
general sense, and kind of what kind of mindset should they take? How should they interact with that person in a general sense, of course.
I found that being confrontational is not helpful. You can approach the person. You can try to remind them of the reasons why you don't want them using. But oftentimes, I find that if you were to call the local hospital, especially if that person is going off like the deep end, and by the deep end I mean they are using habitually to a point where it's pretty clear they're going to destroy their own life. You can actually have them committed, and that sounds terrible. That sounds wrong. But I think that for most people, especially if you have someone who's on like a hard drug like cocaine, I think you would much rather call the hospital, have them committed, have them checked out. I think that you would much rather do that than to see them dead. Um, the way that I would approach someone, because my brother is actually a drug addict. He's actually on cocaine, and we go through this every now and then. He well, not every now and then, every year he gets missing. He sells everything that he owns, and the way that I approach it, you know, if you were to come to someone for the first time, confront them with it, but don't do it in a very confrontational manner. But if you've been dealing with it for a while, like I have, there comes a point where you have to show tough love. You cannot tear yourself down. Now, I'm not telling you to let the person self destruct, let them destroy themselves. However, someone's only going to change when they want to change. I watched my mother. She would buy him a house. She actually bought him a house. Buy him cars. Buy him everything. Give him money. She actually pays his freaking mortgage. And so when you give someone something and they can hold money for drugs, that's not helping them. So sometimes you have to completely cut them off.
Right.
And
Well,
when
and
they
I think also that people value what they earn, and
right.
when you give them free handouts, they take advantage of that. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah, it's basically I had to stop doing the things that I was doing because I realized that I should have realized it sooner, but I was enabling him, and I totally understand, people who want to save their friends and their family. They want to support everything that they do. I understand that, but there comes a time where you have to kind of cut yourself off from them to allow them to grow, because if you are constantly hovering over them, if you're constantly trying to save them, they're not learning anything. And I learned that from my brother, who still does the same thing now because of the thing because of me, paying a bill for him, or getting him gas money, or buying him some cigarettes. I would
Right.
do all that stuff, and I would enable him. And I've noticed that he's gotten better ever since me and my mom kind of like backed off.
Yeah, and I
Let
always
him
tell
let him
people too, in any kind of relationship, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship or even a relationship with a drug addict, never invest in those people more than they're willing to invest in themselves.
right.
Because
And
the thing is that they don't care if they're not willing to invest in your relationship and they're not willing to invest in their own self interest. Then there's really nothing for you to do. Your hands are tied, and they have to make that choice. There's nothing, you can't make it for them.
right. I found that mothers in particular, they are the toughest with drug addicts, because they want to save them, and typically it just seems like they can't stop seeing them as children. And I totally get that, but I find that mothers really do get in the way. They really do. Like it's
I get it.
I
No,
mean I
I get
totally
it.
get it.
Right, I
I
get it.
totally get it, but it's just they want to hold on so much, and they don't realize that they are getting in the way. Like my
Right.
mom, she just doesn't realize that she's getting in the way, and it makes recovery, and it makes the whole process of helping those people so much harder, especially when you constantly defend them.
Right. Right. Well, let's switch gears again a little bit. Um,
Right,
Now you're a YouTube content creator. How
right.
long have you been making content online?
Around 2 years. My channel has been around for a minute, but I haven't started really making content until about 2 years ago.
Okay. And what is kind of the theme of your channel? I know you got like the little devil thing going on, but I mean, like, what is kind of the theme or the niche or the focus of your channel? Either
Basically, I
what
like
was it when
to.
it started, and how has it evolved?
It started. I started out with the name Phalanx Unhinged, and I did primarily webcam type of videos, where I would look over the articles. I would
So you
mostly.
weren't like a cam whore then?
No, no, no. I would
Okay.
mostly just criticize the media and criticize things that I thought were pretty much silly, like feminism. I thought it was silly, and I still do. But then I kind of changed my name to Devil's Advocate because I wanted something that was more horror based, and that was more of like the animation thing. So I started out with a still image of a devil, and I'm up to fully animating like the actual character. So the main theme of the channel is kind of hard to unsay. Sometimes I'll talk about men's issues. Sometimes I'll talk about communism. fascism. I'll talk about feminism, social justice. I will sometimes get into religion. Sometimes I'll get into politics. Um, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from my political videos because people are like, "Oh, you're saying every American should own should own guns and everything else," and so it's kind of funny. But most of my channel leans more towards the political right. Um, and so I tend to play off that a lot. I don't do a whole lot of response videos. I don't do a whole lot of opponent stuff. I used to, but now I'm more focused on informing people. And
Right.
I've taken a laser focus to ideologies and I've also lately I've been exposing pedophiles. That's one of the things that I've been focused on. So it's pretty much all over the place, but
Okay.
I want to inform people or warn people about things.
So is it fair to say that your channel kind of focuses more on like family values and
Yes,
basically stuff that you think is good for society? Is that fair?
right, right. I
Okay.
want I want to see a more libertarian society. So a lot of things that I say will be focused on that, and I also don't like when people try to collectivize some things when they want a general hive mind. I want people to be individuals. Like for example, you know, I was targeting in my latest video, I was targeting people who are identitarians, who want people to be a hive mind within like a racial group. I have an issue with that. I want people to think for themselves. That's when we talk about the democratic plantation. you know the reason why you have that, and the reason why that is a thing is because you have a certain hive mind within the black community, or the Asians or the Hispanic. You don't want people to think in a collective. You want them to think as individuals. Make your own choices. don't
Right.
don't don't let someone tell you that because of how you look, or because of the circumstance of your birth, that you have to be a certain way. And that's the other issue that I've been having with young children, and is that they will tell me, well, I'm black, so I have to be this way, or I was born in this neighborhood, so I have to be this way. And I have to tell them that is the circumstance of your birth. That is not who you are.
Right.
And
It's that
that's
it's that
what
area it's that
yeah.
area code zip code mentality.
Right. And so I tell them, you don't have to. You can be born in the hood. You don't actually have to be hood. You can be born as an Asian. You don't have to be smart. I mean, I would hope that you are smart, but
You
that
don't have to
doesn't
you
mean
don't have to like rice.
right. You don't have to, yeah. You can be Hispanic, and that doesn't make you like a freaking illegal alien. Again, it just I want
I get
people
it. I get it.
I want people to step outside the stereotypes and just be themselves.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because I think that MGTOW are very individualistic, and it's
We
interesting
are.
because MGTOW come from all walks of life. There are MGTOW on the right, there are MGTOW on the left, there are MGTOW from a variety of different countries and nationalities, and it's interesting because we are as different from one another as we are different from everybody we run across in the community. And what's interesting is that a lot of MGTOW don't like that collectivist attitude either, and because you're going your own way, you're not going somebody else's way. You might take the bits of wisdom that they provide you and incorporate it into your own personal philosophy, because at the end of the day, that whole going your own way piece of it, it is your way. It's not necessarily humans way or devil's advocate's way or TFM's way or anybody else. And we catch a lot of shit for that. And one of the things that I talk about, again, hashtag shill alert, in my book, is in chapter 1. I talk about ad hominem attacks. People don't like it when you won't be part of the collective. They won't like it when they can't cuck you. They won't like it when you won't be their bitch. When you won't be, oh, you're the popular kid. Let's go ahead and kiss your ass and lick behind your balls. No, fuck off. Go fuck off. Go play hide and go fuck yourself. The idea here is that those ad hominem attacks, those shaming tactics, they don't work on MGTOW. They don't work on MGTOW because we've heard it. We've heard it from feminists. Oh, you can't get a woman, or you're a basement dwelling neckbeard, and all the other little bullshit dog whistle things that we hear. And we hear this all the time. The reason that I bring it up is because, given my background, um, sometimes those ad hominem attacks, they escalate, and they escalate to the physical, and hopefully people don't have to deal with that. But again, when you have a level of ignorance that goes to the level of going from shaming language to violence, it becomes an issue. And I know, like when I talked about my last video that I put out, you gave me some clips that kind of concerned me a little bit. I mean, somebody disliked your opinion so much, they started threatening you with violence. I mean, obviously without naming
Yeah.
names or anything. Can you kind of go into what kind of happened, and who was threatened and what those circumstances were?
So there was a video that was put out that was kind of going after the alt right, and it was made by a YouTuber known as Kraut and T. And so when it got flagged down, I as well as many other contributors, I think it was like 40, like more than like 40 of them. We all re-uploaded it, and we were all saying that we were against flagging. So when I re-uploaded it, I started getting a lot of threats. One was directed at my wife, saying that someone was going to come and snap her neck. One was directed at my 2-year-old son, and so it got really really interesting, and yeah, I've gotten a lot of threats ever since then. And the funny thing is, no one actually carried it out because everyone's a badass when they're on the internet.
Oh
So
yeah, they're chairborne rangers. That's what I like to call them.
oh yeah, everyone's a badass then. Everyone wants to, woof at you. We um in in our neighborhood, we call that woofing. It's a lot of woofing. But nothing happened, and I know who did it now. One guy was a fascist, the other guy was alt right. So the alt right keeps saying, we know no one alt right did it, and it's like, yeah, one of you did that. So it's very very interesting. But again, I don't hold the entire alt right responsible.
Well,
There are
right. I mean, yeah,
there
there
are there
are.
are some people within the alt right who are actually decent. The problem that I have with them is that they need to start being honest and saying, okay, we do have fascists here. We do have
Right.
people who are dirty here. We do have people who are assholes here. And I will admit, that people that I've associated with, they are assholes. Some of them have flag stuff. Some of them have done that. But the difference between me and them is that I'll actually admit it and I won't deflect. I'll actually admit it. So and then later on, this recent drama, the whole crap, I don't even understand it. But apparently, because someone in a different server, namely Zeph, I think it's Zeph and Orion, because he has a pass, and because this server had information on it that was already public. Apparently, I'm a doxer now, and so I've been asking for evidence as to show me the screenshot in which I dox anybody, because you were also in that server. And did you see any doxing? Did you see me approve of any doxing? Did you see me
Wait, wait,
approve
wait,
of any?
wait. Are we talking about the Zephadarian that was talking shit about MGTOW, who basically did the
Right,
video that was like, I need attention? Yeah.
right,
Okay.
right,
Okay.
right. Because
I
apparently you are in league with someone who's been criticizing MGTOW for how long now?
I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. And
So
for those who don't know, I actually had a single conversation with Zeph, and he actually apologized for his MGTOW video and said something along the lines that it was directed toward people like Angry MGTOW and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't care. We're gonna make fun of you anyway. It's fine. So
yeah,
he,
so
he
it
understood
was it
that,
was
and we
very
moved
weird.
on. Yeah, he understood that, and we moved on with our day. So, but I guess my point is that MGTOW gets shamed all the time,
Right,
and nobody necessarily hates the alt right per se, or hates every aspect of the left per se. There are good people on both sides of the fence,
right.
but the indoctrination, the collectivist indoctrination, the whole desensitization types of shit, it blows me away. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I had a guy reach out to me on Twitter mid last week, and he was like, "Man," he goes, you and TFM, you guys call India Cuckistan, and we do. We call it Cuckistan because they're cucked." And he's like, but some of the stuff you bring up, he goes, is only in one state or two states or whatever. And then he goes, I was going to reach out to you and I was going to criticize you for it. And then he says, wait a minute. He said, as he was getting ready to criticize me for it, he thought about it and he went, these guys are bringing up issues that we need to talk about, that we need to address. And he said, I've seen this so much and I've been so indoctrinated to it that I saw it as normal and didn't realize how dysfunctional, how gynocentric, and how abusive and discriminatory to men it truly was. And he goes, and so when he first reached out to, or was going to reach out to me in TFM, he said that he was angry. He was furious because he's like, oh, you know, you're mischaracterizing this. And what he was doing was he was doing the blue pill cuck thing where he was trying to minimize it and white knight from a lady. And then he realized he was doing it before he reached out. And he wanted to come out and tell me that whole piece and then apologize to me for basically feeling that way. But then he understood it was like his red pill moment. And so he thanked me. And, you know, if TFM is listening at some point, he thanked TFM as well for bringing that information to the forefront. And, you know, I think that once we actually have objective conversations about the realities of, you know, what's going on in society and the whole gynocentrism piece, I think that that's where we find the common ground to make our communities better. You know, because everybody, I think that everybody wants to make their community better. If you're, you know, look, if you're a collective white racist piece of shit cuck, I get you want to make your society better. You just have a different method of doing it than the social justice or the feminist bigot. I get it. And yeah, I've got some views on both sides, and I disagree with both sides, but I understand the thought process. You know, people want to have a safe society. They want to have a society where they can have a good family, good relationships, and those types of things. We just have different methods of how to get there. But I think that it's interesting is that, you know, as MGTOW, we see this shaming all the time. So it was actually kind of funny to watch some people give me pushback for that particular video I did, because I don't even really know. I think I think that I mean, I know of Croughton T, but I don't know him, and it's hilarious because when I brought his name up, everybody just lost their shit. Now, they didn't care about the fact that I actually posted verified threats that you had received for you by racists. They didn't care about the fact that I was able to present well-documented evidence of this racial indoctrination piece, or how, you know, people were trying to go out of their way to make this appropriate again. And they didn't care about any of that. And frankly, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit about racism. I really don't. What I care about is I care about the indoctrination, and I care about taking advantage of vulnerable people. And when men first discover MGTOW, you know, like you were saying earlier, you had your red pill moment. You sat on your bed and you cried. You broke down. Well, what would have happened if you would have been exposed during that vulnerable period to some extremist ideology? What would have happened if some purple-haired cunt came up to you and started shoving social justice bullshit down your throat? You would have been more susceptible to it. Just like if you were, you know, if the Hotep showed up and said, oh, you need to hate everybody who wasn't black, you know, you would be more susceptible to those sorts of things because you're in that kind of vulnerable, emotionally volatile state. And there's a lot of men out there who are discovering MGTOW, whether it be the easy way or the hard way. But the red pill is a bitter pill to swallow. It is painful. It hurts. And many people can't get through it by themselves. And there's a lot of MGTOW content creators that help, you know, people out. And yeah, I might disagree with some of them, and I may have even mentioned them by name, but you know what? They have an audience. They're talking to people. They're serving their portion of the community, and they're sharing the message that they think is important. And it may not be a message that I agree with, but you know what? Guess what? I don't have to, because again, I'm not giving them a grade. I'm not writing them a paycheck, and I apologize, but I'm not sucking their dick. So my opinion to them shouldn't matter, and their opinion to me shouldn't matter, as long as we're doing what we need to be doing. But the second that you do this collectivist bullshit, where you're like, I'm going to tell you how to think, and I'm going to tell you what to think, and I'm going to tell you who to hate, and I'm going to tell you who to like, and those types of things, that's, I think, where it becomes a problem, because you lose that individuality, and you lose that sense of decision-making authority, and that's where people start getting manipulated. That's where the unethical behavior comes in, and that's where just, you know, people start fueling the hatred. And that's really one of the things that I have a problem with.
Yeah, that's again, people think that you know, people like me just hates the alt right, you know, the social justice warriors, those kind of people, and I have to explain to them, it's not you that I hate, it's your tactics, it's your idea, it's your description of a perfect world. Like, for example, I dislike people who subscribe to Black Lives Matter for the same reason that I dislike white nationalists, because they want people to think in a freaking hive mind. That's the problem that I'm having. Instead of you focusing on actual legit issues, like, for example, custody battles between men and women, those are actually legit issues. Here you are
Or taking
blaming the
women's rights
Jew.
away.
Right, right. I mean, here you are talking about, the fucking Jewish question or white privilege, that kind of stuff. It's like you aren't adding anything to the argument that people can actually use. So, what is your purpose? What is your purpose outside of causing discord and causing people to hate each other? What is your purpose?
Well,
And
and more importantly, just to kind of interject real quick, more importantly, here's the thing: as far as the gynocentric piece is concerned, I mean, there was a woman in Texas, I don't know, like a year ago, who went into a church. She was basically she had the freshly fucked look on her face, looked like she'd been treated roughly. I mean, really roughly. She said that 3 black guys raped her. The white nationalists flipped the fuck out. They put her picture up there and they're like, oh, we need to go hunt the black man and all this other stuff because they raped this white woman and this and that. Well, then it turned out that she made it up. She completely made up the story. But here's the thing: like, a rape kit was done. I believe that she actually had sex. But the thing that they didn't talk about is obviously she wasn't raped. Who was she fucking? She was fucking somebody. It was consensual. But who gave her the bukkake choke slam that she loved so much that she made up a story to conceal who it was? You see, nobody asked that question. And that's the thing that a lot of these white nationalists don't understand is that a lot of these women that pretend to be pure as a driven snow are getting the pure driven cock behind their back. And, it goes back to that whole thing. It's like, holy shit, you have to deal with the unrestrained gynocentrism before you can deal with the rest of it. So I apologize. I just want to make that point, but thank you. Go ahead and go on.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna mention about the false rape claims, man. I actually ran across a guy on social media. His name was Alan Northrop, and Alan, I didn't know who he was at first, but then I actually went to Google him. But coming to find out, this guy, you might have actually heard of him before. This guy was in one of the worst false rape claims that you've ever seen. He was locked up in prison for 17 years for a crime that he never committed.
I think I put him up on Twitter. He's a black guy.
No, white guy, white guy, white
Oh,
guy.
different guy then. I put somebody else up. So tell us about that for those who don't know, because apparently I don't know either. So
it
ease our
was
ignorance.
it was crazy. Alan Northrop, he I can't remember the exact details of the actual story, but the rape never actually happened. They go to court. He gets arrested and he goes to court. And if you actually read the court documents, the lady even said in court that I was blindfolded at the time. So how do you positively ID someone if you're blindfolded? And so this guy, he got
Maybe
he
maybe
got
she
locked.
maybe she had so much cock that she could identify the ridges as they were entering her. I mean, now that does take a little bit of vaginal tone, ladies, for those of you that are out there. But they say cock feels differently. So I don't know. I'm
It was ridiculous.
speculating.
It was ridiculous, man. So DNA evidence proved his innocence. It didn't. It showed that he never even touched her. And so this guy got out of prison. And could you imagine for a second trying to put your life back together after being in prison for 17 years? And by the way, there's something that people don't seem to understand about scenarios like this, like the actual false rape claims. When you get a false rape claim, you are classified as a sex offender if you are convicted. So you are placed with other sex offenders, people who are likely to rape you while in prison because the actual prison rape stats are pretty bad. So could you? I don't want to say that he was raped because he never said that, but what are the odds that he wasn't raped in prison for
Well,
something
when it
that he
comes
didn't
to when it
that
comes to
he didn't do?
male, yeah, when it comes to male crime victimization, when it comes to sexual assault, that is actually a stat that is grossly underreported. I mean, especially those convicted of sex crimes, they are more likely to be sexually assaulted, especially if they're a child abuser or something like that, and they have to put them in special things. Because I mean, I've talked to people who've worked in justice, and I mean, those guys are fair game.
Yeah. The the other thing that I've noticed about the false rape claim is just I never quite understood. I get that some people don't want to say that women don't lie. I get that part, but it just seems like this like this like nagging persistence to constantly tell us that women can never lie. I wonder why that is. I never quite understood this. It's kind of a mystery to me. This is not really like my kind of field. I work with like kids and
Well,
like freaking pets.
yeah. I think that really it stems from this idea that they just want to touch the pussy. If I tell everybody, if I virtue signal hard enough and my fedora tips with enough intensity, you will let me touch your pussy. I really think that that's where it's coming from. TFM has introduced me to a new term he found the other day. We call it fedorable. So it's, yeah, it's,
Meme that, dude. Meme that.
oh yeah. I've been hashtagging fedorable. So guys, if you're listening, hashtag fedorable. It absolutely is, and it's like holy shit. These guys are just they're such desperate cucks. I mean, think about it for a second. Like Louis C.K., right? These women asked him to masturbate in front of them, so he did. Then they later accused him of sexual harassment for doing so. Really, dude? Really? Really? I mean, you're not even going to give him the bukkake choke slam. You didn't even get a chance to fuck him or touch him. You just decide, I'm just going to whip my dick out because I'm so thirsty and just rub one out in front of you. Really? No audience participation? Come on. Come on. So with that in mind, we've gone almost an hour and a half. I think it's been a great conversation. I think at this point, let's open it up to the question and answer session. For those people that are new to the stream, let me kind of explain how the Q&A session works. So normally with my show, I have an interview like what we just did, and then at the end we do a Q&A session for myself and the guest. Now, if you're on a computer desktop or you're on Twitch TV, you'll see these bukkake choke slams on the right-hand side in green letters float up occasionally, and then occasionally you'll see a small box with my icon in it. You want to click that box, you want to choose Redeem Bukkake Choke Slam, and then what you want to do is you can use that to ask a question. If you don't have that, let's say you're on a Roku or you're on a mobile device, a phone, maybe even a tablet, you're not going to have that option. So for you guys who are watching, what you want to do is you want to use brackets, question in caps, and then direct the question to either myself or direct the question to Devil's Advocate. You can put like DA or you can put guest and then ask your question. And then if you're doing the Bukkake Choke Slam Q&A tool, go ahead and do that, and then you again address who the question is to first, then ask what your question is, and then go from there. The icon may have gone away. I see the question mark. Yeah, so I might have to re-upload the icon. So this show is a work in progress. So understand that when I started making videos, I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I've had good mentorship from people like TFM, and Lone Wolf has helped me out on my Twitch channel, and Grizzly MGTOW, who was in the audience. Lots of YouTube content creators have really come together to make sure that we minimize the stops the short bus makes on my channel. So for those people that did help, if you're listening, thank you. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to go over right now to the Streamlabs, and let's take a look at some of these questions and see where we're at. So if you have questions again and you're in the chat, okay, so we have a first question. In the chat. It's from Dynamite Rabbit. It says, question for Devil's Advocate. Thank you for your service and for assisting fellow veterans. Not a question, but a comment. So there you go.
Very much welcome. I love doing it. I love a vet, and I've actually debated veterans, and when they bring up like they're the fact that they are actually a vet, I'm not gonna lie, I go so much softer on them. I do.
Okay. And then we have a question from the Bukkake Choke Slam. We've got Ethical AA. And Devil's Advocate, I believe this question is to you. It says, what is it about the Devil's Advocate role that appealed to him enough to use it as his online alias and channel name?
It was a combination of many things. Number one, I love to play devil's advocate. People, if in most every video that I put out, I'll play devil's advocate at least once, even though I don't really announce it. And aside from that,
so if I understand you, then what you're trying to say is you're a tranny. Yeah, I mean, is that where
Guilty
we're
as
going here?
charged.
It's tranny online. Is that what's going on? Okay. I'm
Guilty as
fucking with you.
charged. I'm gender non-conforming. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, okay. Well, you could be a male presenting transgender lesbian with an extremely long clitoris with pubic hair. Just saying. Just saying. It's possible.
That
Oh,
mental image, I did not need
you're
that. But
you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so we
anyways,
got to go ahead.
I was gonna finish the and plus the idea of devil's advocate, with me playing it so often, I could easily take a devil character and make it into like an actual mascot. And I like horror movies, so it gives me a chance to kind of be creative with that. Hope
Okay.
that answers the question.
Perfect. All right, this question is from the chat from Papa MGTOW. The best ways to deflect shaming tactics against MGTOW. I'm going to go ahead and address that. So Papa MGTOW, TFM had actually did a video about the Zen of zero fucks given. Frankly, just ignore them. And again, I use this attitude. I'm like, look, you don't give me a grade, you don't give me a paycheck, and you don't suck my dick. Why does your opinion matter? The point I try to make is, and it's obviously it's a little bit of abrasive language, but where I'm going with that is that if you don't benefit my life, if you don't invest in my life, if you don't invest in my well-being, I have no reason to give a shit about your opinion. I have no reason to pay attention to you or anything else. And guess what? At the end of the day, I'm going to pop smoke and disappear. So I think the best issue to deflect the shaming tactics is just to ghost in plain sight. The other thing I would say is that if you are MGTOW and you're not a content creator, in your real life, don't talk about MGTOW. If people are, you're in your real life and you're running around, don't talk about MGTOW. Now, if I want to red pill somebody, I might go up to somebody and I'll talk to them about some video I want to show. I'll be like, oh my God, look at this retarded shit I just found on the internet. MGTOW or I don't know, but this guy's a fucking idiot. And then maybe I'll show him one of TFM's videos and let it red pill him. And I'll totally just pretend that I'm not. But, but the point is that if you're in your real life, don't tell anybody about MGTOW. Just ghost, go your own way and do your thing, and find things to live for. Because once you find things to live for, you're not so focused on what you're living against, and you're going to have a better life because of it. TFM talks about self-actualization. He's absolutely right. So I mean, I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail on that because he already has. So there's no reason to recreate the wheel when he's done a fantastic job of making that happen to begin with. Next question is from Raylyn at Misandry Today, which is me, by the way. DDJ is fine. Raylyn says, keeping up with current feminist news, do you have a folder of different news sources or an RRC feed? I actually do a little bit of research every day, and because of my background in family law, I can actually pull that stuff up pretty quickly. I do keep that research there for like video content. So like my Her Stories series, for example, I do have a list of female criminals, female rapists, and female domestic violence perpetrators that I'm actually have slayed out for my Her Story series. And I do have some subjects I do keep aside for like my dojo series and things like that. So yeah, I do. It's just, there's only 24 hours in a day. So I'm trying to push on that. And like last week, for example, I streamed with TFM on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and just last night, Saturday. So my schedule gets pretty busy pretty quickly, but cocaine is a wonderful drug. Next question. This is from Embudo Blanco Rirojo. He's a longtime TFM fan. He says, question, Devil's Advocate. Thanks for saving the lives of men with the background in the hood. Saw your stuff. Definitely baseline for me, let alone for others. So just a nice comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question. I'm just going to kind of blow through some of these real quick. This is from Halaman 1345. DDJ. My friend just got married last year. What is funny is that just when he got a $50,000 a year job, all of a sudden he got married, and I haven't heard of him having a girlfriend for even a year. What do you think is the best case scenario to prevent him from being divorce raped by his wife? A couple people have talked about this, and one of the ways that I found to avoid being divorce raped by your wife is really just to make sure that she's making what you're making. If she's because the divorce is probably inevitable. Like I said, most marriages don't survive beyond 10 years. And I think I saw some stats that said that 84% of marriages are separated beyond 5. So with that in mind, the second that he can no longer trust her, and this is the thing that people mess up, because men think they can fix the problem. If there's something wrong with the car, the man, either he's going to try to solve the problem himself, or he's going to take it to a mechanic, but he's going to try to solve the problem. He thinks he's helping. The issue is that when a woman is no longer invested in you, you can't solve that problem. Or I should say, you can't solve that problem and remain married, because her problem is the marriage. So if she's lying to you, if she's dishonest with you, if she doesn't tell you the truth, it's not because it's Tuesday. It's not because it's raining outside. It's not because she's on her period. It's because she's trying to cover some shit up. She's lying to you for a reason, and they always lie for a reason. Who cares what the reason is? You can't trust her. If she's going to lie to you about one thing, she's going to lie to you about everything. So break the relationship off early, and you just tell her, oh, we grew apart, and don't confront her. Don't do the stuff that guys do to solve problems with each other. That shit doesn't work. Be non-confrontational, and get an attorney early, build a war chest early, and make sure that you've got separate assets so that when things happen, you at least have a fighting chance, with the understanding that she's going to come after those separate assets. So, but keep it on an even keel and avoid confrontation where necessary when it comes to that. All right, Tao the Wanderer, next question. For DDJ and Devil's Advocate, is there any problems that you can see or loopholes that she can use to pull sneaky shit if I decide to have any kind of kid via surrogacy? Is there any way, shape, or form you could push the legalese holes into a surrogacy contract that you can think of?
Ooh, that's
That's a rough
interesting.
one. Yeah, you want to touch
That's
on
a
that
rough
one?
one. Ooh, I actually no. That's on you, man. You are the
All
legal
right.
expert there.
All right, all right. So, my disclaimer: obviously, I'm a paralegal. I'm not an attorney. I would say this: I have seen situations where surrogate mothers will back out of the contract and keep the kid, and then you're fucked on child support. I have seen a couple instances. It's not widely publicized, so I don't know how far-reaching it is. Because sometimes what happens is that there's a huge problem within the family law system, or there's a huge injustice in the family law system, but the news won't report on it until it's like past or beyond pandemic levels. So there is a way to do that. I would just say, contact a family law attorney, somebody who has a parental rights knowledge, like for parental termination or CPS or anything like that. And definitely speak to an attorney, because the reality is that, feminism has been in power for almost 50 years, and they've closed almost every loophole that a man can use to protect himself. So that's why MGTOW is the solution. And I know that, there's a lot of brilliant guys out there, and maybe some of you have master's degrees and PhDs. Maybe you might be legal scholars or you're experts in your field. But the reality is this: feminism is a multi-billion-dollar global industry. If you considered it, they've already thought about it, and they've already legislated against it. And it's no disrespect to anybody, but that's why I'm MGTOW, because it makes the logical choice. It's better to pop smoke and not be a target than it is to put yourself in a fucked up situation. Learn from my mistakes. Next question is for Halaman1345. DDJ, how did feminists gain so much power all over the world throughout time? Is it just women voting, as TFM says? No, it's the cucks. It's the cucks that gave them the power. And TFM talks about this as well. The vote was an issue because they gave them the vote free from responsibility. And rights are linked to responsibilities, and if they can't handle the responsibilities, they shouldn't have the rights. That they're called privileges at that point. That's why you hear people talk about these things as privileges. So, it is the cucks that are responsible, and you'll see this because like every time a feminist is starts saying shit, all of a sudden you have fucking 15 fedorable manginas running around tipping their fedoras as hard as they can, and they're retarded. So yeah, it's the cucks are just as much of a problem as the feminists are. In fact, if you're MGTOW and you have experience in the community, it is the it is the men who will flip you more shit than the women. I have gotten more sympathy, and I have had more women reach out to me behind the scenes that have said, "We agree with you. It is shitty, and we want a husband, and we want a family, and we agree with you." But then the men will be like, "You're an asshole. You need to just take it in the ass for feminism and take it in the ass for gynocentrism, and you're not doing your duty, and society's going to fail." Well, guess what? Society's going to fail anyway. So I'm going to be okay no matter what. Just like TFM said last night, Smart MGTOW have taken steps to deal with things and have contingencies. As long as you have contingencies, you're going to be fine. The only reason that I'm making videos is to educate people to help save more men so they can open their eyes. Because if we can avoid the collapse and we could start helping people out, that's the best way to go. And, TFM, again, he's done a lot more thinking about this than I have. And a lot of my views have evolved based on arguments that he's made. So if, you want to go into detail on that, look at his channel, look at the stuff that he's done. He goes into it all the time, and it's irrefutable. A lot of his arguments are absolutely irrefutable. So whether or not you disagree is up to you. But, definitely look at his content, because it's where a lot of people who've thought about this, where they've gotten their views. And I would say arguably TFM is probably the most knowledgeable, the wisest, and probably one of the smartest MGTOW on the internet, because he's taken so much time and focused on this. All right. Political Jazz says, request DDJ, would you ever consider going on Warski Live? Yeah, I'll talk to anybody. If somebody reaches out to me, absolutely, I'll talk to them. I'm not going to sit and run around and start, reaching out to everybody and be like, oh, hey, can we do a stream together? And try to suck everybody's dick, because nobody pays attention. And somebody like Warski, he's probably got a bunch of people paying attention to him. So, if somebody from his group, or if he's got like a production manager like Kat, and they reach out to me, yeah, if the schedules allow, I'll talk to anybody. I've talked to Tommy, I'll talk to feminists, I talked to an anti-feminist who didn't like MGTOW. So yeah, I don't care. I'll talk to anybody. All right, I'm going to switch back over to the Bukkake Chokeslam's got more questions here. All right, so Kova Redro says, have these people threatened devil's advocate been dealt with accordingly? There should be a cause for, has they should be cause threatening someone's life is going too far. This must be, wow. Here, let me see if I can reiterate this, Corvus, so you don't sound so retarded. No disrespect. It says, have the people threatening devil's advocate been dealt with accordingly, and threatening somebody's family is going too far. So DA, that's you.
Right. I know one of the guys who did it. He lives in Bulgaria. Name's Lazia. Lazia. He's been known to do that, and he's primarily the one behind the whole flagging thing when it first was going on. So there's nothing I can really do there. But there was another guy, and the FBI has his info, and I don't want to mention him because it's under an active IC3 report. So I don't want to talk about that too much.
Right? Yeah. Don't go to the criminal investigation side. Obviously, let the authorities do their job. So okay,
but I'm letting the authorities handle that.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question. This is going to be from Joe Amp 7. Devil's advocate, what is your opinion of the military, and would you say it's worth it for a young man to do? I have a friend who's going into the military, and they understand a man's role in society as being disposable. So what's your feedback, DA?
I understand if you have the view that joining the military makes you cannon fodder. I totally can understand that, because it's kind of hard for me to disagree with that on some levels because of how I talked about, the video that you re-uploaded. They certainly do treat you like cannon fodder. But the one thing that I would definitely point out is that the military gave me a sense of purpose. It gave me discipline. It gave me a lot to go off of, and it gave me a way to not only build my resume, to pay for my education, to get me out of my mom and dad's house, which is very important. It gave me discipline that I didn't have when I was growing up. I was behaving very uncivilized, and I think the military civilized me. And it also taught me that life isn't about race, it isn't about gender, it isn't about everything else. It's about what you can get out of it, and so it helped me to grow up. I became a man when I decided to enlist, and so I would encourage young men to do that, just for the reason of, if you're coming out of certain backgrounds, if you're coming out of bad scenarios, if you realize that you are undisciplined, and which is most people who are undisciplined don't realize that. But if you feel like you need a purpose, join the military. They will give you one. And it also provides you with a brotherhood. So,
Okay.
there you
All right. Let's move on to the next question. This one's from Ray Shagul. Question about AI and legal to DDJ. I'm aware of many startups that are trying to leverage chatbots' natural language processing for generating legal advice filing paper. So, do you believe in the disruptive potential of? I'm assuming that's AI. I do believe in the disruptive potential of AI, and I think when it comes to certain automated processes, I think that that's relevant, but I think that when it comes to the legal profession, you need to have a legal professional do it. It's the same reason why I don't think that, like you saw Elon Musk talk about Tesla, and he's talking about commercial truck driving. I have a CDL. I don't use it, but I have one, and I know how to drive a commercial vehicle. And let me tell you something: an AI can't do it. Not on American roads. An AI can't do it. They will get in car accidents. They will kill people, and it will be a shit show. And they'll stop traffic on major thoroughfares for hours and hours at a time, disrupting potentially hundreds of thousands of people's lives. So we're not there yet. I think there's possibility for us to be there. I know that there's like I think some Japanese company made an AI girlfriend. I think for men, I think it might be a great idea. I think the AI for robots would be a great idea. I think this whole civil rights for AI bullshit that the feminists have started, I think is just fear tactics because they're afraid their $4 pussy is going to be worth less than 25 cents here once AI is done. So that's my thought on that. Next question is Holoman1345. DDJ, if all cucks, manginas, and white knights died tomorrow, would the collapse be prevented? I don't think so. I mean, I think we're at stage 4 cancer. I think that killing them is not the right move. I think that if we could red pill enough men, then the men will come back and they'll step up and do what they need to do. The possibility of doing that, I think, exists, but the probability is very slim because, blue pill men, they don't stand up to real issues. They're like women. They do their best to avoid the real issues, and they focus on shit that doesn't matter. So that's why when you see I created the hashtag Cuck Lives Matter. I did that because I wanted to bring out attention for people that won't pay attention to it. So like we talked a little bit earlier about these white nationalist collectivists who are basically nationalist socialists, and we talk about social justice warriors. These people, they don't think for themselves. They're not independent. They want some kind of welfare state or social net, and they're unwilling to stand on their own 2 feet. That's why their women cheat on them. That's why their women go out behind their back, because they don't have backbones. Their dick is in a purse and their spine is on layaway. And so, if we woke up enough of those men and said, look, this is how you have to treat your women. This is how you have to dismantle gynocentrism. At that point, that's when we might have a fighting chance to deal with it. But other than that, I think that we're at stage 4 cancer when it comes to some kind of collapse. And I think that my personal opinion is that collapse will take the form of financial before nuclear war per Fallout style or anything like that. Next question. Imbudo asks, is collapse avoidance in sight from your all's perspective? I think we addressed that. This might not be your view, DA. What is your view on a potential collapse of society?
I just don't know. I do know that the student loan bubble is gonna pop at some point. It really is. It's gonna pop because I mean it's just pretty much obvious. I'm just hoping that we can cushion our economy and our job market enough where we can actually withstand this to a certain degree. But when that bubble pops, it's gonna be nasty. So I would say I'm concerned. Definitely, I'm
Okay.
concerned.
All right. I'm going to take 3 more questions, and then we're going to close down the stream. Okay. First question is from Ethical AA. What's the worst and best situation you've come across when helping vets? And is there hope for the VA, or will they always treat vets like expendable liabilities? And obviously, this question's to you, DA.
The best experience that I've seen is with my oldest brother, and he had PTSD when he came back, and he had some issues, and his experience was actually good because he had a brother in me that got him help immediately. So I mean that was the best experience. The worst that I've seen, my roommate from combat, Jason. He had a cyst on his heart. No one had any idea that he had that cyst on his heart when he was in service, and he went through an entire deployment with that cyst on his freaking heart. It took the VA 6 months to even review him, to evaluate him, and so that was the one thing that I was pretty pissed off about. I was really upset. Um, Things are getting better now. They're getting better, but I'm always skeptical of the VA. There are there are good people and there are bad apples with any job, but I instantly come into the idea when I think of the VA, I instantly become very very skeptical of good intentions, and that might be unfair, but at this point, the VA has shown me that I have no reason to trust them.
Okay. The next question is going to be from Reprisal 49. Question for DDJ. A follow up from the TFM show a couple weeks ago. In countries with rape shield laws like the UK, how does a man defend himself if his accuser is anonymous and he has no right to cross examine her? Honestly, I don't think he can. Now, I'm not an expert in UK law. I did do a stream with Elizabeth Hobson a few weeks ago, where we went into the law. I mean, she's very knowledgeable about a lot of the stuff. She's involved in local politics. She's an anti-feminist, and so she. I mean, I knew some of the stuff that was going on in the UK, but I didn't know how bad it really was there. And oh my God, if you're in the UK, you're fucked. In criminal court, you have no chance to cross-examine the witness. They allow her to be groomed, and then they allow her to be filmed, and then her testimony is filmed, so they can take 20 takes to make sure she's groomed. This is witness tampering. It's unethical, and in the United States, it wouldn't fly. And I think that if I were in a situation personally, and again, I'm not a UK attorney, but if it was me in a situation and I was falsely accused, I would take it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and I would do an interlocutory appeal right in the center and be like, look, if I can't confront my accuser, if I can't cross-examine or weigh her credibility in any kind of meaningful way and cross-examine her in real time, then this is a miscarriage of justice and it's a violation of my due process rights to a free and fair trial. And if you're going to allow her to take 50 fucking takes for her testimony, that's witness tampering as well, and it's a systemic problem. And I don't know what the laws are in the UK, but for me, I'd be suing the government for due process violations for myself, and I would go scorched earth on everybody. I would do my best to sue them into the Stone Ages because they're trying to destroy my life. So there's no reason for me to give them any quarter, period. So, and I would definitely respond to it. And I'll tell you, Gian Gomeshi, who is a media personality in Canada, he got witch hunted by the entire feminist complex, and he turned around and he hammered on everybody. And the reason that he is free today is because he uncovered a conspiracy between his three accusers where they shared 5,000 emails that basically outlined their conspiracy to set him up. And this was a guy who was a ladies' man, he was an alpha male, he was rich, he was popular, he was powerful, and he was a social justice warrior. He was an actual male feminist. And they crucified him and did not give a shit. So for those male feminists out there and for those cucks out there, let me tell you something. You get the knife too, and if you haven't been paying attention recently, you get the knife first. So stay the fuck away from feminists and stay the fuck away from situations. And the reality is that your best defense is to ghost in plain sight. It's to go MGTOW, to avoid women where you can, and to blend into the background where you can't. And I've talked about this in a couple of my recent videos. I suggest people look at it. There was a question in the chat that I think I missed. Here it is. This is from Sirajio. It says, DDJ, where can I find a soft introduction series of videos to MGTOW that I could share with my blue pill friends? People don't typically find MGTOW when they're blue pill. Typically what they do is they find red pill stuff first. Usually they come to MGTOW from PUA or MRA. Most people don't just show up on MGTOW's doorstep. They end up at MGTOW. It's like, MGTOW's like the 24-hour restaurant, right? They're like a Denny's. You don't go to the 24-hour restaurant. You sort of end up there because everybody else is closed, right? So usually at 3 a.m. when you're trying to sober up. But the thing about it is that MGTOW is usually a very bitter pill to swallow for somebody who's blue pill. And so people who are blue pill who haven't even been exposed to the red pill yet, they just reject it out of hand. Their cognitive dissonance will not allow them to accept the realities and the harsh truth that MGTOW provides. So with that in mind, though, look at TFM's old content. Look at Turd Flinging Monkey's old content. Look at Sandman. Look at MGTOW 101. There's a lot of MGTOW content creators out there. Human is a fantastic creator. Again, Chris Cantu, Grizzly MGTOW. We have a lot of really fantastic content creators out there who share red pill truths and MGTOW truths every day. And I know I missed a couple people out there like Sunrise Hoodie and people like that. But again, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. There's a MGTOW content creator for you. And the other thing I would say is for exposing your friends to MGTOW, MGTOW.com is fantastic. It's a great way. There are people who go to MGTOW.com, they read their forums, and then they join the website and they're like, I'm home. I thought I was by myself. I thought I was the only one going through this. I thought that maybe there was something wrong with me. And then they go to MGTOW.com and they meet a community of 20 plus, 30 plus thousand people who have gone through the same thing. And they get the support that they need as men. And, MGTOW Reddit is not perfect, but it gives people that red pill exposure to some of the truths they may not get otherwise. The other thing I would say as well is, look at, like, I created a group on minds.com. It's a small MGTOW group that MGTOW guys post to, those types of things. But, obviously you have to look at multiple sources and then kind of come up with your own personal philosophy and go from there. And like I said, even if you're red pill and you're not MGTOW, look at Human's content. Human is fantastic when it comes to the philosophical perspectives, the moral and ethical perspectives, and looking at those kind of, no disrespect to Human, but like those navel gazing types of things. When you actually look at like the meat and potatoes of the philosophy piece of it, he does a fantastic job of breaking that down. So yeah, and then last question is going to be from XL Nemo 20K, and this is his troll question, and I like his question, so I'm going to ask it. DDJ, you say $4 pussy. How do you arrive at $4? Is this based from an actual encounter? If so, please tell us. When I was in college, after I left my first wife and before I was in a committed relationship with my second wife, if I was interested in having sex with a woman, I never paid for it. And I had friends that would take women out, and they'd take them to a nice restaurant, and they'd buy them flowers, and they'd do it, and then they'd be like, "Could I touch the pussy?" And I'm like, come over to my house, let's watch some movies, have some drinks, right? And whatever. Or the point was that, if they're interested, you're going to figure it out sooner or later. And if you're alone, well, biology happens, and then it's bukkake chokeslam time and you move on with your day. But I've never had to pay money for it. And so I see these people that are like, oh, I gotta shower this woman with gifts and this and that. And some bitch will say, I'm high maintenance. Okay. So you can go be high maintenance by yourself with your dildo and cats. I have things to do. I just don't have time for it. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm looking for a slut, but the point is that every woman is a slut if you catch her on the right day. And when I divorced my second wife and I started out in the dating scene, all these women were interested, but at the same token, though, half of them were married. And I'm like, really? And of course, you never find out until after you fuck them, and you're like, Jesus Christ. So the pussy is not worth very much. And so, that's why when I talk to people, I say, look, any relationship that you enter into, whether it's a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, or a professional relationship, if you don't have trust, you don't have shit. If you can't engender trust or you have no credibility with the person that you're in that relationship with, you don't have shit. Because at the end of the day, even if you disagree, or maybe, you might be ignorant about something, or they might be ignorant about something, if you have the trust, you trust that you can explain those things to them, or correct that wrong-headed thinking, or correct the ignorance that person has. But you can't fix a dishonest person, because a dishonest person is a liar. And every woman out there thinks that she's a fucking 10. Look at the Make app. Some blue pill cuck made the Make app program so that basically they could identify women who've been sexually trafficked. Well, people started using the Make app on celebrities and everything else, and then they realized these celebrities were nowhere near as hot as the makeup actually made them look. And so these women are like, holy shit, they pulled the mask off. I'm done. And the thing about it is that I've seen pictures of some of these women who they use the Make app on. I've seen them with makeup and without makeup, and then I see them with the Make app. The Make app actually makes them look better in most cases than them actually not having the makeup at all. Like, I looked at Da, do you remember who the lady is who played Wonder Woman? Gal Gadot, I think her name is. Is that who it is?
Gal Gadot.
Yeah. I saw a picture with her without her makeup. Holy shit, she looked like a heroin junkie. Her face was
Oh god
gray,
damn.
like literally, like they had a leash, right? And they like wheeled her out, and she's like walked out in the middle of daylight and hadn't seen daylight. Her face was pale, like a heroin junkie or some kind of vampire. And you're like, and she just said, and all it was, she had no makeup on. That's all it was. And I'm like, holy shit, you're like a 6. Yet everybody runs around and acts like this woman is like a 10, and they bend over backwards for her. And so you have to, I mean, again, look at these women without makeup. And if these women won't show you what they look like without makeup, there you go. It's narcissism. And so, yeah, never pay $10,000 for $4 pussy. And if you catch them on the right day, it's all $4 pussy. So with that, I want to thank everybody for showing up. I want to thank everybody for paying attention. I appreciate the questions and the interactions. Devil's Advocate, thank you for taking the time out to hang out with me today and to have this little chat. And with that, everybody, obviously, if you're interested in more of what I have to say, especially about feminism and the destruction of the family, check out my book, The Feminist Lie. It was never about equality. It's on Amazon. It was a bestseller the first 2 weeks it's out. It's still in the top 10 in multiple bestseller lists on Amazon. It's gotten over 85 reviews. Amazon rates it at 4.5 out of 5 stars. And also, I'm on the Turd Flinging Monkey show. Turd Flinging Monkey just wrote a book called The Doll Under My Balls. It's a 7-page or 14-page poetry book. I've read it. I liked it. It's hilarious. You should pick it up. It's like $3 on Amazon as well. Go to his Twitter and find it. It's Twitch TV. I think it's TF Monkey. I think is his Twitter, or not Twitter, but his Twitch. And there's a link to it there. You can also search for it on Amazon on Kindle. If you enjoyed this, once I upload it, please share, like, subscribe, and then of course, if you want to support my research, there will be Patreon links as well. So thank you everybody again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. And we'll go from there. Have a great day.